Hi everyone, and welcome to UBS Trending. I'm Anthony Pastore. I'll start with one word right now, Metaverse. Now I have your attention, and you're not alone. Over the past 6 months, the word Metaverse has been mentioned more than 371 times by major companies across the globe on earnings calls and conference calls. So what is it, first of all, and why as an investor should you care? Let's talk about this right now with my guests, Kevin Dineen, Reed Gilligan, and Rob Samuels. Gentlemen, great to see all of you. I know there's a lot to get to with this word metaverse that I just mentioned. It's getting thrown around a little bit more here and there. We're starting to hear about it. None of us really know what it is. So Kevin, I think that's got to be the first question to get this thing level set is what is the metaverse?
Right. I think we're at that point in the development of the technology where there's not really one definition or one widely accepted definition. The way that we think of it, though, is the metaverse is this deeply immersive experience driven by virtual reality. It'll meld together or bring together, elements of the real world into the digital world. And we think that, the metaverse, whatever it ends up actually being realized as, we think to be truly the metaverse, it has to have a couple of specific qualities. It has to be persistent, it has to be synchronous, and it has to be interoperable. Now, as you mentioned, metaverse and interest in metaverse has exploded. You cited that stat, 371 companies on conference calls and earnings and things like that talking about the metaverse. And that's from industries as diverse as semiconductors to toys to cars to consumer products. So it's certainly becoming part of the investing zeitgeist. But we do think it's very early days. We're going to watch this develop in real time. And we think it's a very nascent stage so far.
Is it, I've read that it's a hypothesized iteration of the internet, but then it's sort of in a 3D virtual immersive experience. Is that a way to describe it?
I think that's not a bad start. I think, again, this is evolving in real time. I don't know that there's a set or standardized definition. But your notion or your comment that it's the evolution of the internet, a lot of people pose the metaverse as being Web 3.0, a much more interactive, decentralized internet experience than we deal with today. So I do think, there are some elements of Web 3.0 that show up in the metaverse.
Right. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg got on the bandwagon and he changed the name of the company from Facebook to Meta as a bit of an homage to the word itself.
Right. And that really reflects, I think, Zuckerberg's notion that the way we experience the internet today, who knows when, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it'll be very different. And I think Zuckerberg is thinking about that as he positions the company.
Right. And and it sounds like the stuff of sci-fi movies. And Reed, interestingly, when I think of the metaverse, and I think other people can agree, I imagine people in their homes with their virtual reality headsets. They're flailing their arms, they're playing some video game or whatever they're doing within that immersive world. So is the metaverse a sort of a version of that virtual immersive experience, or is it something more than that?
Because I read the book Ready Player One and I watched the movie, and it was just this giant virtual reality game that everyone across the world played all together. But no, the metaverse is so much more than that. It's more than just a virtual reality game. It really promises impacts on more than just gaming. It's on entertainment, it's on work, it's on education. Think of remote education on a much broader scale and a much more interactive and engaged scale through the metaverse. So I think it promises a lot more than just the game.
Right, and here's another question. Can you have, so I imagine the metaverse is it's like everyone goes into this one digital experience and it's immersive, et cetera, but can you have more than one? Or is that even, I'm not even sure if that's the right way to ask the question. How do you describe multiple metaverses?
Right, that's actually one of the things that we discuss in a note that we publish, and we describe it as a multiverse of metaverses. And I think the notion of the metaverse implies sort of one gigantic open world. We're not sure that that's what will actually happen, because a lot of effort, a lot of capital, a lot of resources will have to be invested, real world resources, real world money, not virtual currency or anything like that, to build out, support, and develop this metaverse. So we wouldn't be surprised to see maybe the realization of the metaverse fall somewhat short of the ideal of the metaverse. So what we're sort of thinking about right now is that there won't be one metaverse. There will be a series of metaverses. They'll look like walled gardens. We don't know if they'll be fully interoperable. And we think that that has implications for how the metaverse is developed and how it ultimately gets monetized and what it means for investors.
Right. Well, you talk about the three pieces: persistence, synchronous, and interoperability. Persistence particularly seems really important because it means it has to continue without any resets or any kind of, I guess, breaks. So in other words, I buy into, I don't know, I don't even know if I'm describing this right, and you guys can correct me. I buy into a particular part of the metaverse. I buy products within there. I can dress my avatar up in a Louis Vuitton suit if I really wanted to. But how do I know that, a year from now it's not going to get reset and I lose everything that I purchased because it's in the virtual world?
Right, I think that's exactly right. So that is the notion of persistence, that your presence will persist, your purchases will persist, the metaverse itself will persist. It's continuous. It doesn't need to be reset or recast. It's just this ongoing. I think of it as sort of like this river that just keeps flowing.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. So this actually brings me to the next conversation, part of the conversation on the investment side. You talk about monetizing the metaverse, and I think we just teased that a little bit. Reed, when we talk about the monetization of the metaverse, as we've seen in the report that you wrote and in the research I've seen, many name brand companies are selling products, virtual products, in the metaverse. Is that the definition of monetization in this particular space?
I think it's a form of monetization, and I think that's the easiest first step you can do in a virtual world is a one-time purchase of a consumer good. But because the metaverse promises so much more, I do think that we're going to see a number of different monetization strategies across every single industry. And I mean, we talked about the metaverse kind of looking like a virtual reality game. And I think that's because video gaming has already spent decades creating these immersive 3D worlds and virtual experiences. So if we just look at the video game industry and look at some of the signals that are going on there, virtual economies and digital currencies are really becoming very popular in these video games. We expect that to proliferate in the metaverse just because everything, all your digital assets we purchased kind of virtually instead of more physically. On top of kind of these virtual economies, what else is going on in video gaming? It's freemium, which is basically free to play with premium add-ons. And that is really important to attract the massive audience that you need for both video gaming and then the metaverse to become successful. So, I mean, metaverse, even more so, the competition for consumers' time and engagement is going to be huge. And then past that, what other strategies are successful now? It's a subscription model where you pay a monthly or annual fee, and then you get access to this premium content. And that's just in the video gaming space. I mean, it's going to look different in any industry, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing. And I'm sure Rob can talk more about the consumer.
Yeah, and Rob, it's an interesting pivot because when the way Reed describes it, a lot of us are very used to paying for TV subscriptions like to the Netflixes or HBOs, et cetera. And then we're used to broadcast television where we sit through commercials that are paying for the ads that are running those particular productions. So the concept of the way it'll get paid for shouldn't be really foreign to a lot of us. But from the consumer side, it seems like there is a really interesting opportunity because you're covering parts of the sector now that are more physical, like they're tactile. Anything that you talk about, I can actually hold in my hands. This is a very different experience.
Yeah, it's a great question, Anthony. I mean, what we're already seeing today are there's large consumer brands that are already taking steps to create virtual product copies of what they sell in the real world. For example, in Roblox, you've had limited edition Gucci purchases sold for more than $4,000. That's a real sign that even premium goods continue to warrant, premium prices, even in a virtual world. And if you think of, companies like Nike that sell digital copies of their shoes and apparel online in a game like Take-Two's NBA 2K, that's all pretty much gravy for them. So I think you're just going to continue to see more and more of that. Nike recently launched a Nike Land within the Roblox universe, and it's almost a virtual copy of their world headquarters. You're seeing virtual avatars that are just highly customizable within games. Most people alter their appearance on a daily basis. So I think you're just going to see more and more consumer brands being sold, digital copies within the metaverse. And I think it's just another way that these brands can monetize and grow their brand, name recognition.
It's fascinating that there is so much more opportunity coming down the pike for companies and, of course, investors of those companies. Thanks, Rob. Kevin, what about, so Rob's talking about from the consumer side, what about from the technology side? You and I have been talking about 5G for a long time, but it almost feels like that's not even enough to power something like this.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting opportunity for a bunch of different industries that I cover. So at a high level, if you think about the social media platforms, some of the biggest technology companies, we think there's clearly potential there, right? They have gigantic scaled up user bases. They have expertise and experience in operating massive data centers at scale and already delivering a robust consumer experience. And then they also know how to monetize that, right? So the social media platforms are already capitalizing on user experience through advertising. And Reed mentioned a subscription model for the metaverse. That probably will have a role to play. But ultimately, there's a way to think about this, that this is just another form of media. And if you look, over time, right back to the days of 50 years ago at the outset of television, or 70 years ago at the outset of television, and now word from our sponsors.
That's right.
Well, we think that could be sort of the model in monetizing the metaverse, where it could be very advertising driven, because ultimately, advertisers will follow consumers where they go. So if we transition from Web 2.0, looking at our smartphones, and we go into the metaverse, advertisers will follow us there, and that might be a way that the metaverse gets monetized. On the other hand, if I think about the technology companies, there's a lot of infrastructure that's going to have to be built out, right? So I think if you think about these deeply immersive experiences, they will require massive computing power. That's very good for semiconductors. That's very good for a lot of semiconductor companies. There will be a need for a lot of incremental networking capacity. That's good for a lot of companies. It could be 5G. It could be more traditional landline networks. But either way, we think this is a boon for semis and for communications equipment. What we're not sure about is what this ultimately means for consumer hardware. If you look at the consumer hardware industry, there's very few companies who actually make good margin, because they really don't have a lot of intellectual property. They don't really have a lot of value add. It typically gets captured by the semiconductor companies or the software companies. I think that's an open question for how some of the leading consumer electronics companies really participate in the margin pool of the metaverse.
It's amazing. You can think about the potential here. I know all of our minds are just sort of exploding. From the entertainment factor, artists can do concerts in there. Marshmello, the DJ, what was it, 10.7 million
Reed can cover Marshmello.
Virtual concurrent attendees. That is absolutely incredible to me in the metaverse.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one of many gaming trends that we're seeing that kind of points towards the acceptance of a more kind of digital lifestyle. And one concert that can attract more than 10 million people at one time. I mean, that's a pretty impressive stat. Another trend that we're looking at is this normalization of digital asset value. And as Rob said, consumer goods, a digital version of a consumer good carries the same price in the physical world as the virtual one. And that's only right now. Imagine as we spend more and more time in the metaverse.
And only my avatar can wear the $4,000 Gucci piece of clothing that Rob was talking about before. Good for my avatar, right? And I'm sitting there in sweats and a T-shirt in my house. And then you even think about the idea that maybe movie studios and television productions might move into the metaverse, and you'll have these immersive TV and movie experiences that are designed just for that. So it's a whole world, and I'm sure it's just scratching the surface. So Kevin, really quickly, anything else that we should know about the metaverse? Is it available now? Is it something I can actually start participating in on a grand scale?
Not on a grand scale. And look, we don't really think that there's going to be a before metaverse time period and an after metaverse time period. We see these early experiences. Somebody mentioned Roblox, the video game platforms. You see these early experiences that sort of give you an idea of what the metaverse, quote unquote, the metaverse, all caps, will be. But it'll be a period of evolution to get there. How long is that? I'm not sure. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? I'm not sure, but I'm confident that we will get there, because we just look at we have a lot of evidence around the gains in computing power over time. So if you think back, if you think out 5 or 10 years from now, computing power will be so much more, or cheap. You can think of it as being computing will be cheaper or more powerful, one or the other. The cost of moving traffic around the internet drops by about 30% per year. So all those supporting technologies, they're really going to enable new applications. The metaverse is one of them. It's not here today. There's early instances of it, early experiences of it, but we don't think you've seen the full thing yet.
Just getting a little meta here, right, gentlemen?
Let's get meta.
Yeah, to borrow a phrase. Thanks, gentlemen. This is a really amazing conversation. I'm obsessed. I have to get myself a VR headset to experience a Marshmello concert virtually. So thank you, guys. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Anthony.
Great, thank you. And for more information, there's lots of content available from our Chief Investment Office at ubs.com/views, and even more content on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also check out past UBS trending episodes on demand. And as always, if you have any questions about how anything we spoke about impacts your own portfolio, talk to your financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Anthony Pastore. We hope you have a fantastic day, and remember to keep your eyes on what's trending. We will see you soon.